adding that much value. So
Right, I agree.
that being said, let's transition into Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed Syndicate was announced, it was leaked, and then it was announced, and now we actually have the Fry twins, who are now our new protagonists, taking place in London. And how I heard a journalist say what it was, it's kind of like Gangs of New York in London in that time. So, that being said, you know, I have not beaten Unity. I believe that you are still on Pirates. I always call it Pirates.
I'm still on Black Flag.
Yeah.
And I credit 100% of my lack of interest in future Assassin's Creed to the travesty and debacle that was Assassin's Creed 3.
Amen, my friend.
I would like to liken that to Indiana Jones 4.
Okay. All right.
And the likes of, Grease 2. Things that should not be named.
Grease
in a
2.
public
Sandlot 2. Like Sandlot 2.
Any of those things that really just should not be acknowledged as being in existence. And it ruined me for the Assassin's Creed. I purchased the first one on release date. I waited.
You
the 2
hooked me on it. You hooked me on that game.
I loved that game. I waited the 2 years for the next one. I bought all of the other ones. I pre-ordered all the other ones, and I purchased them, and I loved them. I played the crap out of them. I easily put 40, 50 hours in each one. And then...
Yep. Well, I remember coming over to your house. You were at your parents' for the time, and you're sitting in that little rock chair thing that you had, and you're playing this game, and I'm like, what is this game? And you're like, it's Assassin's Creed. And I'm like, what's Assassin's Creed? And I had no idea. And so at that time, you had a 360, and I had my PlayStation 3. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting here, and I'm like, what is this thing? And you're like, oh my gosh, dude, just give me 1 second. You're going to try it in a second. And you finish the mission, and I remember you getting on the building and going into a hay bale, and I went, oh, yeah. I had never seen something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds really ridiculous, but I had never seen something like that. And then, you're right, 2 came out, and we were like, it's almost there. It's almost what we want. And then Brotherhood hit, and it was just like, wow, what a great balanced game. Phenomenal. And then we get Revelations, which is honestly a time filler, right? It's like, okay.
All 3 of those are time fillers. They could have been put into one game.
You're right.
I enjoyed all 3 of it. Assassin's Creed 1 will always be my favorite just because it's Assassin's Creed 1. It built everything. Everything's based off of it.
Altair is my favorite assassin still. He's just still my favorite person.
100%. However, I loved Assassin's Creed 2 so much. I'm glad they made the same game twice again. Like I enjoyed having.
And they tried to make it and they tried to make another one and tried to make it 3. Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. Like, it's kind of one of those things where it wasn't broke, don't fix it. So it's a similar. I don't want to liken it to Mass Effect because Mass Effect is head and shoulders above Assassin's Creed.
Right.
But Mass Effect took what was right in the previous game and built on it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really liked about Mass Effect. If you take out the story to it, it's playing the same game 3 times with more advanced graphics and a little bit better user interface.
You're right.
And that's kind of what Assassin's Creed was until they got to Connor, which just crapped the bed.
So yeah, let's talk about Connor. So problems that Jordan and I both have with Connor, and let's just get this one out of the way. Whiny little brat. Let's start with that. I understand that you lost your family, blah blah blah. Every assassin lost something. Yes, we don't know Altair's complete backstory, but it's
kind of the cool part about it.
From the games, we don't know his backstory. You can get the comics and find out. But and then you have Ezio, who lost his father in front of him, right? Mm-hmm. And then had the love of his life ripped away because she didn't want to be part of that, and he left her alone, right? So he had all this angst, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But then I just felt like Connor was just a complete, why is this still going off? I said turn off. I have an alarm for tonight, and it keeps going off every 10 minutes. Anyway, so I was like, oh my gosh, Connor, and I'm trying, and I'm like, okay, he's just a kid right now. He's going to grow up. Mm-hmm. He's just a kid. He's going to grow up. Nope. Nope. Still hate him. I didn't like that. I thought the American Frontier. I was worried about the American Frontier because I was like, there's no big buildings, not really much going on. I felt stranded half the time.
I 100% agree. It was faster for me to run through the snow than it was to try and find a path through the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, I have 100%ed every Assassin's Creed up to Connor, and I got to the point to where I just went, I'm tired of going after these tags because it takes forever to get to one.
Mm-hmm.
I hate what I have to do once I get to it.
Yep.
I hate the fact that you put the little disappearing things in the tree that are impossible to get to, and it triggers before I get close to it.
Right.
And I have to leave the area and come back, so I inevitably just push through the story mission.
Right. And I beat it, but but that's when you were like, dude, don't bother doing the side crap. Just don't bother.
Yeah, it wasn't fun anymore.
Nope. And I was like, you got it. Ran through the story. And then I was completely confused on how to build up your area and all the stuff.
I still have no idea.
Connor also never became a true assassin.
And that's my biggest problem with the entire game. If you take all the other flaws out of that game, the thing that would still cause me to hate it is really the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have in Altair, born into the assassins.
Mm-hmm.
You know why he is there. You know why he is an assassin. You know what's going on. Ezio was approached by the assassins, trained to be an assassin, became
technically his
assassin.
father was an assassin.
Exactly. That's what he was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to Connor was the offspring.
Are we really going to spoil a game that came out that long? Offspring of a Templar.
Offspring of a Templar who ran into an old dude who was basically like, oh, BT dubs, I'm an assassin, here's a blade. And that's our story. That's it. I didn't care about Connor. I didn't care about the assassins. I didn't care about the Templars.
Mm-hmm.
And when that's the entire premise of your game, you have failed as a developing company.
What I like, though, is that you started as a Templar, and you started running around and jumping around and everything like that, and then and that you didn't know that, though. And you were like, oh, I'm a Templar, this is crazy,
yeah,
right?
I agree.
I love that.
That was cool.
And then I felt like they did too much. They were like, we need to bring in some sort of Native American thing into this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, we also need to bring in the Templar side of things. Okay, then we need to bring in the Assassin's lore, right? And then we got to swing it all together with Desmond, right? And I'm like, you try to do too much, and I lost where I am. You know,
they did. They. I felt like, you're right. They started the game out well. It had a lot of promise. You saw the flaws in the beginning a little bit with some of the traversing of the terrain, but as a whole, it started off really well. And then they kind of, I feel like as a developing company, they kind of got to a point and they're like, oh, this is supposed to be a huge open world. We need side missions and we need something, the whole crafting system and everything. And they kind of just forgot about what they set out to do.
Yep.
And they focused on the other things, and then they kind of came back to it and was like, oh, I forgot we have a storyline. And then they kind of just like you said, they tried to do too much and they didn't, cultivate it like they needed to, and they just kind of pushed it on to a mishmash and it fell on its face.
The best kept secret that is no longer a secret, but back then, the people who all worked on that game were in multiple different countries at multiple different studios, and it's so apparent in that game, right?
It is.
There's people
the game is disconnected.
There's the people who are like, oh, he's a Native American. Let's bring in some Native American-ish stuff, and he hunts and he tracks. And when we design his costume, let's make sure that he has that look to it, right? Oh, cool. Yeah, he looks great. After that, it's like, okay, well, or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Then we transition into, spoiler, Desmond's done. Desmond is done. He is gone, okay? And this is what you and I actually talked about way before Assassin's Creed 3, which I said something along the lines of, where would you want it to go? And you said it can literally go anywhere, because if you think about it, it depends on how you believe human evolution or human involvement or how we got to where we are. You can look at it from, we came as an ape who came out of the water, or you know what I'm trying to say. Or you see it as we all came from one man. And if you look at Assassin's Creed, they take the view of we all came from one man, because of the Adam and Eve's part. Spoiler with the apple, right? So that being said,
this whole thing's full of spoilers, BT dubs.
Yes. That being said, we could really have done anything. However, when they came out with Assassin's Creed Liberation for the Vita, the first thing that happened, and I told you about it because we were like, oh my gosh, they did what we said. It says, thank you for buying this Abstergo product. It's a game, right? And I thought, that's so cool. And then I was like, okay. And that's what they kind of did with the Assassin's Creed Black Flag. You work for Abstergo, you hop in, and you are trying to discover the memories. And yes, you get a little bit more into how Abstergo is a terrible company and all that stuff, but it was mostly just all about Kenway.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And I thought that was a really cool premise because they killed off their main character. The apocalypse has been set in motion basically, and so it's kind of like, okay, what do you do next?
Right.
Your next option is to basically go to modern times and figure out what the heck is going on with this apocalypse, or it's to take the other side and make you care about why the Templars are so bad, which they hadn't really done to this point.
Right.
You didn't like them because they were hunting you, and you didn't like them because they were going after these bands of assassins and killing them and stuff like that. But outside of that, you didn't really care. They were going after world domination, but that's really just a phrase they kind of used in the game. They didn't really show you a whole lot as to why you.
It's
care
all
about
a point of view. It's all a point of view, right?
And so I liked where they took it with this game of kind of opening up Abstergo to the world and having them take in and make these video games that people are kind of unaware of what they're actually doing. And I thought that was a really cool premise to kind of take you to the other side of it and show you the Templar side of it and how they are kind of integral into this giant conglomerate of a company.
And then they integrate Desmond's team into the game as well, which is fun.
And that's about we said earlier I haven't actually finished Black Flag,
right?
And I've gotten to that part of the game when you start meeting all those characters. And that's when because I was having fun, like shooting people up with cannons and everything. My ship was like fully upgraded before I finished mission 2. And
you can do that. I mean, seriously, you can do it. There's only one thing that's locked by level, I think, on the ship, right?
There's a couple upgrades that are locked by level, but the biggest thing you're talking about is the diving pod, which you can't get till later,
right?
But I saw the one British, Australian, whatever dude with the glasses brings the cup of coffee and everything. I was like, oh, dude,
yes.
And that got me interested in the story. I was like, okay, this is going somewhere. This has some legs to this story. So I got pretty excited about that.
But the thing that I struggle with still is Assassin's Creed is this big open area. It's all this other stuff. It's easy to lose your focus and be done, right? And so, yes, I know what happens in Black Flag, but I don't know it because I finished the game. I know it because I was like, I really don't want to play this. I'm going to go ahead and just look it up, right? And so, because I was really ready for Unity. Like, I was ready for a new console. I was ready for a new way. You know me, I'm all about co-op. And I was like, yeah, co-op missions. This is going to be so cool. I'm really excited. Overall, the game had good bones, but it was a letdown. Overall.
And that's kind of what I got from everybody on that game. It had really cool premise. But the premise that it was built on was this co-op thing, and in actuality, especially at game launch, it was super glitchy, super buggy, and the ability for you to do co-op was limited extremely.
Yep.
And
it still is.
So when you take the aspect that you hype the game up huge about, and then you kind of sneak in the sucker punch at the end of saying, oh, by the way, it's only on some missions. I didn't like that. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I
also didn't like, and I don't think you actually played it yet, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have not played it.
So when I would play with people, I would go into these co-op missions, and you would hop in and be like, okay, this is great. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Kyle would jack up. He would mess up. Okay? He would completely mess up. There was no way for me to, even though I was from a vantage point, there was nothing that I could really do to save him or get him out of that situation, as much as they tried to show it that way. And if you look at how it's all set up, it's just, you got to go do this, and it just makes more sense. Like, there's this one that is basically just a building with a huge courtyard in the middle, and then there's an underground underneath. and it's basically just, hey man, you're gonna go this way, I'm gonna go this way, we're gonna assassinate people real quick, and then what I can do is I can eco vision from my side because I have that upgraded, and I can show him where people are, and then that's it. Like, that's pretty much the co-op that came down to. I completely understand that, and I completely understand how that would work together. And trust me, there was a huge sense of accomplishment when we got them done, because they were some of them were really difficult. But there's this one that I remember that's just a maze, and there's no clear way out. There's no way for me to drop down and save him. I got 5 darts, and even then my darts don't make it that far, right? It just doesn't work for what it was. So the reason why Jordan and I rehashed all of that is because they seem to be getting back to the core of what they were looking for in the beginning. There is no Assassin's Creed multiplayer. So the old multiplayer, which was a really cool idea on Xbox 360 and PS3, where you are dressed up as one of 6 types of people, and then there's those people inside, and you're just fighting in the Animus, right? And you just got to go find the actual person and assassinate them.
I thought that was cool.
Lots of fun, but didn't have a lot of legs. There wasn't a lot of customization. There wasn't a lot of character progression. You couldn't really unlock anything. It was just fun, right?
Yeah, and it was heavily favored towards the people that have played the game a lot.
Right.
If you put the time in to develop your multiplayer character, you're kind of invincible.
Right.
Which is kind of let down, but
right.
Great concept, a lot of fun.
Right. So they took that out. That's gone. Completely gone. And there's no multiplayer co-op either. That's gone too. So it's a single player game again. So yes and no, because I think that they needed it, right? I actually think that they needed it. I think they needed to get back to what it needs to be. Not to mention, the only thing that I kind of sit here and I go, I really like 2-player co-op because you're the twins. Wouldn't it be cool to carry it out together? So they said that there's no multiplayer. That's what they said. They didn't say anything about the co-op really, but people are taking it to assume that it doesn't have any of that in it. What I want to see is I want them to stop bringing Uplay into it, A. I want them to stop having so many chests on my map that I can't find my mission. Let's start with that too. And then the other thing too is I want them to, if they do want to incorporate an app to it again, do the same thing, but don't have it be so tied to Uplay where I literally have to leave my game and go sign in on the browser to Uplay.
Yeah, no thanks.
Completely breaks the. You can do that crap on a PC, but that's about it.
But even then, I'm not a fan of it, and that's the to kind of bring this a little full circle to our first topic. That's the biggest downfall with Destiny.
Yeah. So
to get a story, you got to leave the game.